Great, thank you, Toby. Appreciate the kind words, and certainly appreciate having the opportunity to work with you over the years. Hopefully, I've got my screen share working appropriately here. We were honored to work with Toby's firm over the years, and in a tribute to Toby, I've got a little scruff going on because little COVID scruff to try and look like the man. So I'm also very honored to be sitting here with Warren Burns. Warren's a longtime client of Counsel Financial. He's been with us for a number of years and has also experienced other lending opportunities that are out there. Probably one of the few guys in the space that really understands not just what it takes to litigate, what it takes to try cases, what it takes to administer and run a firm, but also knows how to deal with lenders and has dealt with just about every facet of lending in a much more creative and expansive sense than almost everybody that we've dealt with. Warren will have an opportunity. I'm sure he'll share a little bit more about his firm and your unique needs shortly. Just briefly on Counsel Financial, for those of you who haven't had an experience with us before, we're very proud to be exclusively endorsed by AAJ. We've had that endorsement now for over a dozen years. It's a terrific partnership for us. We certainly believe in the clause. They've got some great people. We're happy to be part of it. We have been in this space for now 20 years, lending to law firms across the country. We lend exclusively to the plaintiff's bar. We don't lend to any other type of asset, any other type of business. It's exclusively lines of credit and other creative products for contingent fee-focused practice plaintiffs firms. We really are a much different company than maybe you would have known us to be if you haven't talked to us in the last year or two. And just literally over the last 24 months, we have expanded what we can do. We've expanded our resources. And today we're proud to say that we can do just about any type of creative financing that somebody would be looking for, whether that's recourse, non-recourse, whether that's sizing. There's not the limitations that we had at one point in time, whether it's a partial portfolio or an expansive financing for the entire firm. Those options are there for you. Just to run through a couple of quick things. It's a little bit of a statement of the obvious in this next slide, but what you will see is we had done, if I can get the slides to change pages on me, we have done a pretty extensive survey, both from our existing client base and others, of what's happening in the industry and what people are experiencing. And the numbers are somewhat as you'd expect. You're all feeling it. You're all feeling the impact of COVID in one fashion or another. 56% of our respondents have experienced a decrease in their intake. Not surprising, for those that do motor vehicle accidents and other types of injury cases, that is certainly down due to the reduced traffic and reduced travel patterns. 50% have seen a decline in case resolution. And overwhelmingly 99% of the firms that we have conducted the survey with experienced some level of delay, and I'm sure it's the case for each and every one of you who are listening here. There's been some level of your practice that's been impacted.
Yeah, I think that's right, Paul. Just to jump in a little bit on that last point, everyone's practice is different, obviously, and I certainly can sympathize with your comment, particularly about PI folks and intakes slowing up, as we've seen just activity slow during this period. But for others who have a different mix or stable of cases, one of the things that we have certainly experienced at our shop is just a slowdown in resolution that makes sense when you think about where we are as a country and as a profession. We all live and die by trial dates to a great extent. That's how cases get settled. And when your trial dates slip, when your dispositive hearing dates slip, it just creates a natural backlog that has certainly piled up. And we've seen that this year. I would say that generally we have done fine with the help of many of our partners, including Counsel Financial, but it is not a year where we see or have seen the expected settlements that would ordinarily have come in.
Yeah, a lot of our respondents, Warren, saw a significant reduction in the offers that they were receiving as well. So some of the insurance carriers and even the self-insured defendants are looking at this as an opportunity to try and reduce offers and settlement values. Have you guys experienced much of that?
A little bit, you know, along with just general reluctance and willingness to push it out. But I think that's right. You know, whether I guess from my perspective, it's a little hard to tell whether it's, you know, pandemic related or just sort of the ordinary testing of the waters. But I think that is true. We have seen, you know, some of our defendants playing harder, uh, play more hardball up front than maybe we've seen in the past.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, and we're seeing that again. We kind of run the spectrum in terms of the types of law firms that we work with. Warren's firm deals with some very large security, antitrust, mass tort type cases. So on a day in and day out basis, when they don't have significant inventory turnovers, you won't see that maybe as much as you'll see it in other areas. But we are certainly seeing it across the board. We have some very successful attorneys that are you know, real litigators. They, you know, they're not afraid to try a case, and you know, they're having defense try to put out an offer for their plaintiffs that they need to present to their plaintiffs that might be, you know, a quarter of what the value of the case really is, but knowing that they're not going to see a court for, you know, 12 to 24 months from when this all started. So how do you deal with it? I mean, one of the main things that, you know, we talk about obviously here is that just, you know, it's about capital, it's about preservation. And it's not just about borrowing in order to do that. It's about what you're doing with your firm in order to make sure that you're trying to stabilize yourself for the long term. You know, most of you hopefully have taken advantage of the PPP program that's out there. You know, it remains to be seen, will there be any type of an extension of that program? Hopefully we'll see something coming through Congress if they can ever get their act together and figure out a way to, you know, expand the stimulus package in some fashion. Hopefully that will come with some relief for the plaintiff's bar. But it's uncertain. So, you know, be prudent about how you're spending money, be prudent about what you're, you know, how you're incurring cost over this period of time. And of course, then it leads into, you know, part of our survey was 45% of the people that we spoke to thought that they were going to need some level of additional financing as this process unfolds. Your revenues are down and your expenses, you might be able to manage them to an extent, but you also, you know, there's certain costs that you incur to be able to keep your firm moving and to keep working, you know, representing your clients. That is difficult to overcome when the revenues drop the way that they have. Just a little bit more on counsel. I mentioned, you know, we're very proud to have been, you know, exclusively endorsed by American Association of Justice now, you know, dating back all the way to 2006. And, you know, that's not just simply a kind of a marketing relationship with us. They're tough. They vetted us. They definitely have spoken with our clients. It's a process with them to make sure that who they represent is somebody that they can be proud to, you know, to represent. We're proud to be a part of it. Our business in general is, you know, focused, as I mentioned earlier, just on plaintiffs. We are founded by plaintiffs' attorneys. We have approximately 10 attorneys in-house right now. So we're somewhat of a law firm in terms of the way we're developed internally ourselves, and really have that experience when you're dealing with counsel financial. You're not going to be dealing with a loan officer or somebody who doesn't understand the space. You're going to be dealing with somebody who's lived in your shoes, or, you know, certainly has been in a situation similar to yours and understands, you know, the practice of law and some of those issues that come about. So,
and just to tag on there, Paul, you know, especially from client perspective, I do want to stress that aspect of counsel has been incredibly helpful over time, because you're dealing with people who understand your business, who understand the type of litigation you're in, who have clients across the spectrum, so that they have unique insight, I think, into many of these cases. And you know, one of the big selling points, I think, early on when my firm entered into a relationship with counsel was, you know, the fact that we could lean on some of their internal resources for information and advice, frankly, as we got into new practice areas and pursued different cases. And we have done that over time. You know, there are folks at counsel whose opinion I value greatly, and when I look at cases, yesterday's a prime example. I called one of their folks yesterday. We're looking at a potential case, and I just wanted to pick his brain on it and see if he had seen anything like it. So it's very useful and important part of the relationship for us.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. We pride ourselves in being able to bring a little more to the table.
Paul?
You know, that piece is really on flexibility, you know, especially
Paul?
like this.
Paul?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but your slides are not advancing. I just wanted to make sure that you knew. We can still see your bio slides.
Really?
Yeah, if you just click down on your PowerPoint and then use your, yeah, there we go. Now we can see the advancement.
Yeah, okay. I apologize about that. I had some fantastic slides that you missed. And actually,
They're in the handout.
the slides will be, I believe, shared, Lynn, afterwards with everybody as
There was a
well.
lot of animation. It was pretty high
Oh
tech.
yeah, there's
So
all kinds of things in there.
yeah.
So mostly talking points that we covered. So, but we will share this with the group afterwards. So thank you for that. So really, just again, I was touching on just flexibility. I mean, really, what you need in a time like this is, you already have the experience of having the ebbs and flows of a contingent practice. So in this time, it's going to be worse than it has been. You've been experiencing that for a long period of time. The main takeaways are make sure you know who you're dealing with. Make sure that you're being proactive with your firm. Warren can, I'm sure, speak to this as well, but firms have had to make adjustments in order to extend the time frame that they have with their existing capital. It's as much as we're here and talking about financing, you don't want to come out the other side of this transaction or this whole debacle, COVID, and be in a situation where you're simply where you were when you went into it, but now you have more debt. That's not the outcome that anybody is looking for. So as much as we're here and we're looking to to help with the financing side, you really need to be looking internally also and take advantage of those other opportunities as they come about. Again, hopefully we'll see an extended stimulus package here before before things run out. Let me turn it over to Warren. Maybe just a little more, Warren, if you could, on your practice to share with them
Yeah.
and your experience. Did the slides, are they still stuck, or do we have one is it now under
No,
pressure?
I think you've got it. Well, let's see. Yeah, I think you've got it underhand. Well, thanks, Paul, and thanks for the opportunity, and thank everyone for joining us today. It's always a good experience to be able to talk with folks in the bar and get their sense of what's going on there and how we can improve and better our situations. I would like to start mainly not necessarily to toot my own horn, but to kind of set the stage for discussion of financing with a little discussion about my firm and where we have come from. We are relatively young. We founded the firm 5 years ago, almost 6 now. My partner Dan Charest and I were partners at Sussman Godfrey in Dallas, Texas, and we both had slightly different practices. Mine was largely focused on antitrust and class actions, some large complex commercial cases. Dan's was primarily focused mainly on the plaintiff side, but in the energy industry, representing royalty owners as well as midstream companies and their disputes. So when we sought to create this firm, I think we had the idea that we wanted to replicate much of the good experience we had at Sussman, but also be able to expand our practices into areas that interested us and created new and unique opportunities that would not have been a good fit at our old shop. So, while I maintained a focus and have maintained a lot of my practice in the antitrust and class action space, as well as, large commercial disputes, we've gotten into things that we didn't do as much of at Sussman. So, mass tort is probably the biggest example of that expansion. We've gotten involved in a number of mass tort cases over the last 6 years, but our approach has always been that when we get into a mass tort case, our goal is to ultimately try those cases and to make an impact in how those cases are run. We don't like to dabble in a ton of them, and just for something like investment purposes, that's never really been our focus. So we tend to try to represent quite a few people and have a meaningful impact in how their cases are presented and pushed forward. And I'm proud of our involvement. We are currently on the executive committee of the talcum powder MDL and have played a big role in that case. And it's such an important case and it's such a huge impact on our clients that, it's one of the ones that I'm probably most proud of in my career. And with luck, things will end up well for our clients, and we're looking forward to the future there. But we do have still that mix of cases, and where that becomes important is that, from a management perspective and a financing perspective, we're always looking down the line, obviously, at our pipeline, but parts of our pipeline pay out very differently than others do. So, for instance, when I enter into an antitrust case, large class action, typically spread out across the country, I know going in, this is a case that's going to require a very significant outlay of capital over time, and it's a case that's probably not going to reach resolution for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. That's I wish it were not the case, but ultimately, that's how I've seen many of those cases play out over time. Same is true with some of our commercial cases. They tend to last a little bit longer just because of the complexities and the nitty-gritty of the fight between two pretty sophisticated parties. On the flip side, we have cases that in the energy sphere, for instance, that tend to get resolved a little bit quicker, just because the issues, while they may be complex, and I never like to look at the spreadsheets generated in our damage spreadsheets generated in our oil and gas cases, because they boggle my mind. But at their core, they're simple breach of contract cases, and you have to prove them up. But you can generally get those resolved a little bit quicker. So that mix of cases really creates some challenges when you're looking to finance your firm and how you're going to spread out capital over time. And we have had some great successes in our firm to date, and I think some of those are outlined or will be outlined on one of these slides. We're one of the key firms that have driven the Blue Cross Blue Shield litigation that recently settled and was preliminarily approved by the court. We settled with Facebook in a case that we brought on behalf of some of their folks who view the suspect and remove improper materials that are put up on the Facebook platform. And right now we're very heavy into litigation in outside of Houston, Texas, where we represent folks whose homes were flooded as part of Hurricane Harvey. And we're suing the federal government. It's the largest takings case in the nation's history. So we're one of the lead firms in that case. So those are concrete examples of some of the things that we do. But as I said, they create some challenges when we look to financing and how you keep a firm like ours running, especially with getting close to 30 lawyers now. I think we maybe actually be up to about 29. And staff on top of those. I mean, obviously we have a lot of folks that we need to take care of and support as we go forward. And Paul, maybe we can switch to the next slide if you have that.
Not sure how these slides are moving along. Is it the Blue Cross Blue Shield on the top of this one?
Let's see. Yeah, let's go to maybe the next. Well, actually, we can stop here, and because I think it's segueing to where I was going. We've talked about some of the challenges and the mix of cases that underpin our firm. Paul said up front, I mean, I have had, by necessity, not necessarily by choice, a lot of experience over the last 6 years in dealing with really pretty much every facet of law firm finance that you can imagine. Our story begins with leaving Sussman, going with Counsel Financial for our initially for our financing. But interestingly, we got a sweetheart deal from a bank, a month after that, and decided that we had to take it. So we switched from counsel to traditional bank lending. We operated under that for probably 2 or 3 years, and then eventually switched back to counsel as our cases grew. Those early periods were pretty similar to a conventional line of credit, although expanding over time as our our needs grew over time. Over the last 5 years, I've been, approached by practically every litigation finance or hedge fund company that's in this space, and have gone down the roads in varying degrees with each of them, to sort of get a sense for what was out there and what might benefit our firm. But most recently, probably a year or so ago, we looked to the future and where our growth trends were heading, and as I looked to make sure that the firm was going to last a while, and we had the ability to weather storms like the pandemic that you can't necessarily anticipate, or even the ones you can. We reached out to Paul and began a discussion that, ultimately resulted in a very creative facility that was kind of customized for our firm. But during that process, which took months, we had a lot of frank and candid discussions about where we were going, what we needed, and at every step along the way, counsel was able to really come up with creative solutions and build on ideas that my team and I had to come up with a solution that was custom made for our firm. May not work for every firm, but in our case is working incredibly well, and we have
to add
benefited significantly.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, and it was very much an iterative process. And I think that the reality is that each firm has unique needs. Warren is, has the experience kind of across the board, and has a very, as a large firm by plaintiff, standards for sure. When you're approaching 30 attorneys and a very significant support staff, and they're involved, and we shy about a couple of the numbers, but his settlements amount to the billions at this point, and he's got some of his biggest cases yet ahead of him. So. It's unique needs there, but whether you're a firm with a couple of attorneys and a paralegal or a legal secretary, or if you're a firm, of some real scale, I think that, each firm's needs are different. They're a little unique, and you need to, kind of be able to pivot and be able to, have a financing solution that, can meet those requirements. So
That's
I know
right.
we're probably cutting short in terms of time. Don't want to cut into Ari. Ari's a good friend, the Esquire team. Kick it back here to Toby. But one thing I will add is that we've worked with them. We've done some things together. So we kind of both, very rarely kind of tread on each other's turf, but there's times when we can do some things together that are to the benefit of underlying law firms. So we're happy to have done that, and hopefully we'll do more and more in the future. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time, Toby.
No, thank you, Paul.
Thanks for having us.
Paul and Warren, thank you guys so much.